final 2025 Oscar predictions. Let's fucking go. For Best Picture, we have Anora, The Brutalist, A Complete Unknown, Conclave, Dune Part 2, Emilia Perez, I'm Still Here, Nickel Boys, The Substance, and Wicked. First things first, the good news. Emilia Perez is no longer a threat to win this thing. Thank fuck. It didn't win the top prize at any of the major guilds. It didn't win BAFTA. It didn't win Critics' Choice. Its only Best Picture win is from the Golden Globes now, and they have no membership crossover with the Academy. We're safe. We are safe from what would have been the worst Best Picture winner in decades. So what do I think is winning Best Picture? Well, it's come down to Anora versus Conclave. Anora was the frontrunner way back in November before award season officially started. Then it seemed like it had maybe peaked too soon and was starting to fall off around the Golden Globes when it completely blanked. But in retrospect, that may actually have been the best thing for it because it sort of took the target off its back, so to speak. And now it's started to surge again during voting when it really counts. It's won the Producers Guild, the Directors Guild, the Writers Guild. That's a pretty good combo to have. But then you also have Conclave, which won BAFTA, and you could have argued that that was just them honouring a British production, but then the other night it also won SAG, Best Ensemble. So now it has two major precursors, and it's also, spoiler alert, the frontrunner for Adapted Screenplay. Yeah, they both have convincing win packages. This is definitely much more of a race than last year, when it was just obvious that Oppenheimer was going to steamroll the whole time. I'm going with Anora. I think that is still the slight favourite for Best Picture. And personally, I would prefer that to win over Conclave. You know, I liked Conclave, but I think Anora would just be a much more interesting and unconventional winner. And Conclave, I think, would be kind of a Shakespeare in Love, Ordinary People type deal where its legacy sort of unfairly becomes defined by what it beat at the Oscars rather than its merits as a film. Yeah, I mean, Nickel Boys would get my vote overall out of this lineup. I think it's definitely the best film nominated. But, you know, if Anora wins, I'll be happy. It's a great movie, would make a very interesting winner. And yeah, I think it is ever so slightly the frontrunner here. I'm predicting Anora for Best Picture. Best Director. Jacques Audiard, Emilia Perez, Sean Baker, Anora, Brady Corbet, The Brutalist, Coralie Farjat, The Substance, and James Mangold, A Complete Unknown. This is an interesting race this year because normally Best Director is like one of the easiest categories to predict when you're like a week away from the Oscars. I've been doing this prediction game like 10 years now, and the only time I've gotten Best Director wrong in my final predictions was in 2019 when I predicted Sam Mendes to beat Bong Joon-ho. And even then, I was pretty confident in that prediction. You know, it was a genuine surprise when Bong Joon-ho actually managed to pull it off. A pleasant surprise, but a surprise nevertheless. So, for me to be really unsure of who I think is winning Best Director at this point in the race, that's very unusual. But exciting. So Sean Baker has the Directors Guild. Brady Corbet has the BAFTA and the Golden Globe. And the Critics' Choice went to John M. Chu, who's not nominated, so that's irrelevant. I'll say this. If Sean Baker wins Best Director, then any doubt as to whether or not Anora is going to win Best Picture will just slip away instantly. Like, Anora is not the kind of movie that wins Best Director if it's not winning Best Picture. If Baker wins, it's a done deal. But ultimately, I think I'm leaning towards Brady Corbet. He just feels a little bit more in line with more recent winners in this category to me. You know, I think if Anora is really strong in Best Picture, then yes, Baker can come along. But I could also see a scenario where we have one of those splits where Anora gets Picture and Brady Corbet gets Best Director. And I think that's what I'm going to predict for now. Yeah, I'm going with Brady Corbet, but acknowledging that Sean Baker absolutely could take this. Best Actor: Adrian Brody, The Brutalist; Timothy Chalamet, A Complete Unknown; Coleman Domingo, Sing Sing; Ralph Fiennes, Conclave; and Sebastian Stan, The Apprentice. Really strong lineup, it has to be said. So, Timothy Chalamet did win SAG, but I don't think that alone is going to be enough to turn the tide in his favor. I always thought that SAG, out of all the precursor awards, would be the most likely to be receptive to the kind of performance that he's giving in A Complete Unknown. And Adrian Brody has just won everywhere else. Like, this feels like a repeat of 2016 when Denzel Washington won SAG for Fences, but Casey Affleck won the Golden Globe, the BAFTA, and the Critics' Choice, and then went on to win the Oscar. The key thing for me is that Brody won BAFTA even though they gave Conclave Best Film. They gave Conclave Best Film, but Adrian Brody still beat Ralph Fiennes. That, to me, really speaks to how strong he is with the voters. So, yes, I think that Adrian Brody is going to win this. And while it is a very strong category, he would also be my personal choice. Best Actress: Cynthia Erivo, Wicked; Carla Sofia Gascon, Emilia Perez; Mikey Madison, Anora; Demi Moore, The Substance; and Fernanda Torres, I'm Still Here. You know what? Fuck it. I'm taking a big swing here. I'm predicting Fernanda Torres. Hear me out. So, most people have this as a race between Demi Moore and Mikey Madison, and that makes sense. They both have strong arguments to be made for them. Demi Moore won SAG. She has a really strong narrative on her side. But on the other hand, Mikey Madison is in the probable Best Picture frontrunner, which she is literally the face of. And she also won BAFTA, which has correlated with the Oscars on many occasions in the recent past, and it's not as if she's British and she just had a home advantage. But then you have Fernanda Torres, who was really underperforming this season until she won the Golden Globe, after which point not only did she get nominated for the Oscar, but the film itself got nominated for Best Picture. See, to me, what that says is that a lot of voters did not get around to watching I'm Still Here while they were voting for SAG and BAFTA, but then she won the Golden Globe, they finally watched it, and they were so blown away that not only did they nominate her, but they nominated the film itself. That feels big to me. I just can't help wondering, what if, while Demi Moore and Mikey Madison have been duking it out at like SAG and BAFTA, maybe there's been this silent surge for Fernanda Torres that we haven't been able to see going on behind the scenes. Maybe a lot of voters switched their planned Best Actress vote after they finally watched the movie. If that is what's happening, we would have no way of knowing, because she wasn't nominated at SAG or BAFTA. But I'm really starting to think that if ever there was a year where a truly unprecedented last-minute surge could happen, this might be it. So it's a risky move. I could end up with egg on my face, but I am predicting Fernanda Torres to win Best Actress for I'm Still Here. And to be honest, I would be happy with any of these three. I mean, I think my personal preference would be between Fernanda Torres and Mikey Madison, but, you know, Demi Moore would be a very cool and unconventional winner as well, so I wouldn't object. But yes, I'm predicting Fernanda Torres, while acknowledging that this is a very risky move on my part. Supporting Actor: Yura Borisov, Anora; Kieran Culkin, A Real Pain; Edward Norton, A Complete Unknown; Guy Pearce, The Brutalist; Jeremy Strong, The Apprentice. This is an easy one. It's Kieran Culkin. Kieran Culkin is winning this. It was looking a little bit shaky for him when the film failed to receive a Best Picture nomination, but he has won the Golden Globe, the BAFTA, the SAG, the Critics' Choice, all of it. He's swept. He is safe to win this. And I'm very happy for him. I think he's great in the movie, and I'm really happy to see him continuing to find success in his post-Roman Roy career. My personal vote would probably go to Guy Pearce, partly because I just slightly prefer his performance, and also because there is an argument to be made that he is more actually a supporting performance than Kieran Culkin, who's really a co-lead that's kind of being category frauded here. but that's nothing new in the Oscar race. It's pretty standard. I'm going to be happy for Kieran Culkin. He's going to win this. It's going to be great. He's going to give a very funny, enjoyable speech. I'm happy for him. Supporting actress. Monica Barbaro, A Complete Unknown, Ariana Grande, Wicked, Felicity Jones, The Brutalist, Isabella Rossellini, Conclave, and Zoe Saldana, Emilia Perez. This is another easy one. It's going to be Zoe Saldana. There was a lot of talk throughout the season about how maybe Ariana Grande could surpass her at one point. You know, maybe she'd win the Golden Globe, maybe she'd win SAG, maybe she'd win Critics' Choice, and it just never happened. Zoe Saldana, once again, has steamrolled throughout the season. The Oscar is hers, there's no doubt about it at this point. And, you know, I hate Emilia Perez, but I don't hate her performance in it. Of all the wins for that movie to get, she's not the worst one. I would still vote for Ariana Grande, which is big coming from me because you know I wasn't a fan of the Wicked movie either, but it's going to be Zoe Saldana. Best Original Screenplay. Anora, The Brutalist, A Real Pain, September 5th, The Substance. So this is an interesting category. I still think it's going to be Anora, but it definitely hasn't gone unchallenged as a frontrunner. It won Writers Guild, but it lost the BAFTA to A Real Pain and the Critics' Choice Award to The Substance. Since it's my predicted Best Picture frontrunner, I remain confident in predicting Anora to win this as well. And actually, right now, I am predicting that it'll just get the Spotlight package where it gets Best Picture and Best Original Screenplay, and those are its only 2 wins. It's a weird win package, to be sure, but this has been a weird award season, so it wouldn't surprise me at this point. I don't buy The Substance or A Real Pain as challengers. The Substance won Critics' Choice, but they don't have any membership overlap with the Academy. A Real Pain won BAFTA, but if that wins Best Supporting Actor and Best Original Screenplay, then how the fuck did it not make it into a Best Picture field of 10? That just doesn't make sense. Anora is really the only one that makes sense to me. So I'm sticking with that as my prediction, and also as my personal choice. Adapted Screenplay. A Complete Unknown, Conclave, Emilia Perez, Nickel Boys, Sing Sing. Conclave. It's going to be Conclave. Out of all the movies nominated here, this is the one that feels like it's going to most appeal to Academy voters in terms of what they look for in an Oscar-winning screenplay. It's very dialogue-heavy. It's got a lot of political themes. They're going to give it to Conclave, which I won't mind. I think Nickel Boys should be winning personally, but Conclave will be fine as a winner. I would be much happier with this winning Adapted Screenplay than with it winning Best Picture. There's not really much I have to say here. The only major precursor Conclave didn't win was Writers Guild, and the only reason for that is because it wasn't eligible, so it doesn't really count. Animated Feature. Flow, Inside Out 2, Memoir of a Snail, Wallace and Gromit: Vengeance Most Foul, The Wild Robot. I think The Wild Robot takes this one. I was starting to lean towards Flow after it won the Golden Globe, but I think it really needed to win BAFTA to remain a formidable contender, and that went to Wallace and Gromit, which I think in the grand scheme of things just helps The Wild Robot. That was already the Critics' Choice winner, the Producers Guild winner. I think as the more mainstream film, it will ultimately win out. It's not going to be Inside Out 2. That just doesn't have any of the passion behind it that The Wild Robot does. And my personal vote would go to Memoir of a Snail, but to be fair, I haven't seen The Wild Robot yet, and I'm sure it's good. Documentary Feature. Black Box Diaries, No Other Land, Porcelain War, Soundtrack to a Coup d'etat, and Sugarcane. I'm going to be cautiously optimistic here and say that it'll be No Other Land. I know there's a part of me that's saying that voters will be too chicken shit to go for a movie with this subject matter, but I'm going to try and have faith here. It hasn't won too many major precursors, but a lot of those have gone to Superman, the Christopher Reeve story, which isn't nominated here, so that doesn't really tell us anything. I think No Other Land has a really good shot here. It could be Porcelain War, but I don't know if they're going to go with three kind of Ukraine or at least anti-Putin themed documentaries in a row. I think they're going to probably do something a little different this year. So I'm going to predict No Other Land, which I would also vote for. International feature. Emilia Perez, Flo, The Girl with the Needle, I'm Still Here, The Seed of the Sacred Fig. A lot of people are switching to I'm Still Here in this category. And I would love to be one of them. But I don't know. I still think it's going to be Emilia Perez, unfortunately. A lot of people are arguing that Emilia Perez's kind of downfall has been a result of the controversy around Carla Sofia Gascon and her horrible racist tweets. But honestly, the further we've gotten into the season, the more I'm starting to suspect that maybe Emilia Perez was just never the Best Picture frontrunner to begin with, and those controversies didn't make a difference either way. Like, Zoe Saldana is still firmly the frontrunner in Best Supporting Actress, and it still won Best Non-English Language Film at BAFTA. So I think what's going to happen is it's just going to turn out that Emilia Perez was never really the frontrunner for Best Picture, and it's just going to win the Oscars that most people were predicting it to win way back before the season had really started to take shape. I really want it to be I'm Still Here. I hope to God that I'm wrong. I would love to see that pull off an upset, and it is obviously more likely now that it's nominated for Best Picture alongside Emilia Perez, as opposed to the last few years where there was only one nominee from this category in Best Picture, and it was obvious that that was what was going to win. But I don't know. I don't want to get my hopes up. I'm predicting Emilia Perez. Best Original Score. The Brutalist, Conclave, Emilia Perez, Wicked, The Wild Robot. R.I.P. Challengers, you deserved better. Anyway, this is going to be The Brutalist. I think pretty easily. Conclave definitely has a shot, but it hasn't really won anywhere big. I think The Brutalist has quite firmly asserted itself as the frontrunner, and I'm happy with that. That's probably my favorite score of the year. Original song. El Mal, Emilia Perez, The Journey, The 6888, Like a Bird, Sing Sing, Never Too Late, Elton John, Never Too Late, Mi Camino, Emilia Perez. Not a great lineup, it has to be said. I mean, El Mal is going to win this because Emilia Perez is easily the most high-profile movie nominated here, and of the two songs from it that keep getting nominated, El Mal is the one that keeps coming out on top. It's also the only song from that movie that I could even vaguely hum, so I guess it's the right choice of those two. But I really don't feel very strongly about any of the songs nominated here. I guess The Journey is my favorite by default, and it would be pretty funny if Diane Warren finally got a competitive Oscar win and in doing so blocked an Emilia Perez victory, but I don't think that's going to happen. It's going to be El Mal. Best Cinematography. The Brutalist, Dune Part 2, Emilia Perez, Maria, Nosferatu. I was going to predict The Brutalist here, but I'm actually starting to think this might be where we see an upset. There's always a few little surprises on Oscar night. I can't just always go with the obvious safe choices. So I'm actually going to predict Nosferatu here, which won Critics' Choice. And I think that instinct of mine has been strengthened by the fact that The Brutalist didn't win at the American Society of Cinematographers. That went to Maria, which I don't see winning the Oscar because it got shafted so much throughout the season. I think it's going to be Nosferatu. You know, it's a pretty damn good lineup. You know, I would be happy with The Brutalist, Nosferatu, or Dune winning this. Really anything but Emilia Perez. But I'm going to predict Nosferatu. Production design. The Brutalist, Conclave, Dune Part 2, Nosferatu, Wicked. This is going to be Wicked, I think. The first Dune already won production design, so I feel like there'll be kind of a sense of, yeah, we've seen that. Wicked has, sets like the rotating library during Dancing Through Life, which, whatever problems I may have had about the movie, that element of it is very impressive. I won't deny that. Yeah, Wicked's definitely not going to go home empty-handed, and I think this is going to be where it gets its win. Also because Nathan Crowley, the production designer, is overdue for a win. I believe he's been nominated 6 times, so I think this could be kind of his Roger Deakins for Blade Runner moment, albeit with fewer nominations building up to his finally winning. I would probably vote for The Brutalist myself, but I won't hate it when Wicked wins. Costume design. A Complete Unknown, Conclave, Gladiator 2, Nosferatu, Wicked. Again, I think this is going to be Wicked. I think this is going to be one of those years where production and costume design go hand in hand. They love fantasy movies in this category. It just makes a lot of sense. My preference would be Nosferatu, but it's going to be Wicked. Makeup and hairstyling. A Different Man, Emilia Perez, Nosferatu, The Substance, Wicked. This is going to go to The Substance. I'm extremely confident in that. It was already looking very likely before we knew the movie was going to be a Best Picture contender, and now that it's in the lineup, it's just a given. Yeah, like the makeup in that movie, especially in that last 30 minutes, there's no way that doesn't win. And it will be a deserved winner. Visual effects. Alien Romulus, Better Man, Dune Part 2, Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes, Wicked. Even though Dune Part 2 has somewhat underperformed this season, I still think it wins here. It's going to get like 1 or 2 tech wins at least, and this feels like the most obvious place for it to win. I'm not too worried about this, It's going to be Dune Part 2, and deservedly so. Best Editing. Anora, The Brutalist, Conclave, Emilia Perez, Wicked. This is a little bit of a tough one to predict this year because the American Cinema Editors Awards will be held after the Oscars, so we can't use them as a guiding point. So I'm just going to default to Conclave, which won the BAFTA. That's really all we have to go off at this point. Like, Dune Part 2 would have been my prediction had it been nominated because it feels most in line with what normally wins this, but it got snubbed, so... Yeah. In the absence of challengers and Dune Part 2, I think it's going to be Conclave. Which I'm fine with, I think that's a pretty tightly edited movie. It would be between that and Anora for my personal preference. I'm predicting Conclave. Best Sound. A Complete Unknown, Dune Part 2, Emilia Perez, Wicked, The Wild Robot. This is another one where I think Dune is going to win. I think, again, despite the fact that it hasn't done quite as well as we may have expected it to earlier on in the year, the sound work in that movie is just, like the first one, so distinctive and memorable and interesting that I think it's going to win here. A Complete Unknown could also pull it off. It could well end up just being the battle of the Timothée Chalamet movies, but I'm sticking with Dune, which would also be my choice. So those are my predictions for what's going to win at the Oscars next Sunday. I'm very much looking forward to seeing which ones I get right, which ones I get wrong. Hoping for good choices all around. Happy that Emilia Perez is most likely no longer winning Best Picture. That's all from me.